And today, as we celebrate this, which is my favorite long weekend of the year, I got to tell you, it is one that doesn't, it has a name. Nobody really gets it. So we get to just have a long weekend. We don't have any special stuff that we need to do. There's no special traditions or anything. It's just a long weekend. And it's the weekend of freedom in my mind. In my mind. Because I have always been one of those people, I cannot wait till spring. I can't wait till the flowers come out. I can't wait till I can start scanning what I'm going to plant in my garden and fruit, not vegetables or anything helpful like that, just flowers. I plant flowers. And every year I try new things, and every year I go back to the basics. But when the new stuff comes in and the trucks start to unload and you can see them showing up at wherever all the greenhouses in town, and it starts to be I think I just can't wait to plant this and plant this and plant this. And then you check your weather apps, which are just really pulling the slot on a slot machine because they don't know anything. Clearly, Wayne and I will get our phones out, and it's is it going to rain? Well, on the orange app, it says yes. Check on the blue app. Okay, check the blue app. It says no, and it does nothing. It sort of spits in the carry. It's none of the things. So you just have learned, I'm old enough now, you don't do anything of any consequence until you pass the May long weekend. That's the rule. You don't plant stuff. You just hold your breath until the May long weekend comes. And then once it's come, it's really spring. We have survived. We have made it. We are champions. We are Canadian. And it's so good, yeah. So this is the ultimate feel-good weekend, and the flowers are out, the grass is coming up, the leaves are perfect. I'm no joke, I pick up every little detail. I was out walking the other morning, and all the baby green leaves are out, and they're actually green because nothing has happened yet. The mosquitoes haven't hatched yet, and so you can walk without things flying into your teeth. It's so good. And by the end of the walk, the cotton started blowing out of the poplars, so that dampened things a little bit because it looks too much like snow. But it's it's fresh, and it's life, and it's hopeful, and it brings us these perspectives that open up new doors of opportunity in our thinking. Sometimes you go through the long winter season, and Lord help us all that we've been assigned to this place, but this was a long winter. When it comes in October and it sticks around until April, that's a winter. And so we deserve spring. We need spring, and you need these indicators. I want to just talk about today the concept of family fruit and the idea of the fruitful seasons, and how the same way when we look at the natural world and we look at this waiting until a weekend like this where things are popping and stuff is happening. I actually had a bunny sitting on my deck the other day. It was so exciting. I was delighted, and so was my dog, who seriously thought a snack had shown up and lost his mind. But I'm spring is in the air. Even the bunnies are showing up right on our front lawn. It's amazing. And so you have these seasons of newness of life, and we come through the faith world, and we also go through seasons. And we've been through the Christmas season where we're reminded of the birth of Christ. We're reminded of where, it all began when Jesus came to the earth, and the fulfillment of hundreds and hundreds of years of prophecy happened when Jesus was born into the earth as a man, and it was life-giving, and it was the start of something incredible. And then we've been through Easter, where we recognize the death that he came to bring life, and he came to die a death so that we could experience the fullness of life. And so we look at the cross, we look at the price that was paid so that we can have relationship with God, so that we can have newness of life, so we can be born again. And we celebrate that. We celebrate the Resurrection Sunday. We celebrate the empty tomb and the concept of actually everything's been paid for. It is done. We celebrate the fact that Jesus actually disarmed the enemy, that there's a victory, that there's a triumph, and we celebrate that and we honor that. And when we come beyond that season, I feel like we need to really pause and understand that from that spot, we are supposed to enter a season of fruitfulness. There is fruitfulness that comes in the body of Christ, and it's not like we're not supposed to be fruitful all the time, but the natural seasons help us to remember and pay attention, and so we can assess the fruit. We can assess, is there actual fruit in my life? We can assess, is there a change that's happening in me, or am I still living in the dormant state? We want to assess what it is that God is planning on doing in our lives. And so when I look at these springtime things, and I look at the greenhouses, and I look at like what's in the options for purchasing, I love, like right now, we all could get suckered into buying flowering trees, right? They're so pretty. They smell so good. You walk through the nursery and it's like, oh my goodness, these are so lovely. But do you know that you're actually supposed to look at the labels and check and make sure you have the conditions necessary for stuff to grow? It's a thing. And so I got the helpful information from our resident green thumb around here, Harold, who owns GP Landscaping, and he's awesome. But he's like, you're looking for the label that says 2B. That's our zone. We're in 2B for anybody who's deciding to spend money this weekend. 2B is what you're looking for. Not all the stores are selling things that are in 2B. Some of them are in other zones that we actually can't grow. And so what happens is you have great hope that this tree you're going to bring home and you're going to plant it, and it's going to be gorgeous, and it's going to have flowers in the springtime and apples in the fall, and you're going to make wonderful apple pies, and you're going to be ready for Christmas, and all of the stuff just falls apart when you find out that you don't have the right conditions for that particular tree or those particular flowers. And so you got to ask questions like, how much sun does it actually need? Like, it turns out we don't grow palm trees here, even though they sell them at Home Depot. I'm always like, if they can, modify the seeds right out of watermelon, surely they can make palm trees that will grow here, but not yet. We're not there yet. So you're looking for how much sun does it need? How much frost can it tolerate? How low can the temperature get? And I have found myself at times reading the labels at the nursery, and it's like, can go down to minus 30 degrees Celsius. And I'm like, yeah, me too, buddy. Beyond minus 30, I'm shriveling up as well. That's my limit. If I had a tag, it probably wouldn't say what things actually are like around here. But you're looking at the tag. You're looking for how much water does it need? What type of soil? No matter whether, you have a desire to have something grow or not, if you don't have the right conditions, that plant is not going to thrive. It's not going to become what it's supposed to become. And so you look at things like, these trees that are beautiful, and maybe you've got all the stuff. You've got the plant that is this tree. It's beautiful flowers in the springtime. You've got the right sunlight conditions. You've got the right soil conditions. You've got the right water conditions. This is going to produce the most beautiful apples. And then you find out the hard way, like some of us do, that you need 2 of them. So I feel like they should come in a 2-pack. If anybody owns a nursery or has connections to, this should come in a 2-pack. If you can't produce anything without 2, you should get 2 when you purchase them. But the idea is we have certain things that need to be in certain groupings in order to be maximum fruitfulness, right? And so soil conditions, sun conditions, temperature conditions, water conditions, connection conditions. There are all sorts of things that make a tree or a plant or a flower do the best it can possibly do. So what if we look at the fact that we are actually called trees by the Lord? Could it be that we need the right soil, the right light, the right water, the right conditions, the right grouping around us? Maybe we need partnership with us. Maybe there's some conditions in order for this tree to grow properly. And so if we look at that, it's worth analyzing in a season like this one, when we're enjoying what's out there. Am I living in maximum fruitfulness? Let's start with, just for instance, Psalm 1:1-3, which is one of the fun verses right at the beginning of Psalms, where it's just pure, it's instructional, it's life-giving, and we see help for us to assess our lives. It says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper." If you had to pick, 5 verses out of the Bible to pay attention to for life instruction, this should be on the list. This basic instruction, this is life-giving for us. This is something that's put right in there. It's a promise. It's something that God has said, like you are designed to bear fruit. You are designed to live a fruitful life. But there is a way that you're going to have to go about this. If we look at this, it's so honestly simple. He's commenting on the conditions that the tree is in. The tree itself isn't actually up for debate. It's the conditions that the tree is supposed to be in that we're discussing, right? And so the conditions, it says, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. So we basically could summarize it like this. Who is he listening to? Where is he getting his advice? Where is he getting his counsel? Where is he getting his instruction? Where is he getting the wisdom from? And we are in the most wisdom, information, knowledge, stuff, inundated culture of all of history. We have everything at our fingertips. We were away for a few days last week and had our phones off. And all of a sudden, it's amazing how many conversations we had where it's like, gee, I wonder where this comes from, or I wonder what's the cause of this. And the instinct to grab the phone and Google it, because we always know all the stuff all the time. We find out, we just literally need to know, like, where do kangaroos come from originally, and what's their history, and what's their lifespan, because you need to know stuff like that. Every little question that comes up, we're always Googling to find out what's the truth behind it. And we have this bait in our society right now where when we find a question, we have a choice whether we go for the counsel and the wisdom of God or we go for the counsel and the wisdom of Google. And AI and ChatGPT right now will tell you anything. You all of a sudden feel like an expert on all the things just by putting in the right question, but so much of it is actually contrary to what God says. And so if you have, heaven forbid, you have a symptom that you're wondering about, I would advise, we have so many doctors in the house, maybe we should just get a list and you could ask them honest, God wisdom. But you can have a hangnail, and by the time you get through Google, you are amputating your foot. It's absolutely gangrene, and this thing's going to kill me. It just takes you down the rabbit hole of all the stuff, right? And so there's this wisdom of man. How about your emotional stuff? Everybody can find a label for somebody online. This person is a this, and this person is a that, and this person's a psychopath, this person's a narcissist, this person's an egomaniac, this person's a whatever. Maybe this person's just selfish. And there's a remedy for that. But if we have labels that we put on everybody and we live by the labels, we're walking in this unwise counsel. So the counsel of the ungodly leads us away from the blessed life that God has for us. There is wisdom that's available to us. It says, walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners. This is who you're hanging out with, relationships, recreation, your free time, who you're hanging with, who are you debating with, who are you conversing with. This is not like I don't spend time with people who don't know Jesus yet, but it means, are you spending time with people who have good, godly counsel? Are you spending time walking with and talking with the path of people who are actually wanting to please the Lord? Because this is how we have this shift in holiness issues in the church. We've had a lot of Christians over time asking people who don't care about sin, who don't care about what pleases God, what is normal and what is acceptable. And so when you stand in that path, when you're walking and you're conversing in that all the time, it starts to dull our understanding of where the blessing actually lives. And then it says, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. This is spending time with. This means to sit back on or to adapt to. It's the place where you land, where you rest, where you mull things over, where you make evaluations and judgments. It's what you take in your off time. It's how you decide how life works. It's what you feed on in your recreational space. It's what you allow in your mind to ruminate on, what you sit on. It's that place where instead of being critical, God has called us to walk in what he says is truth. And so this person has been offered by God. We've been offered this blessed life by choosing essentially who we're listening to, who we're spending time with, and what we're walking in, what we're choosing to walk in and rest in. It goes on, And it says, but his delight shall be in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. So the blessed person is not so much focused on what everybody else thinks and what's normal in society and what I find online, and I'm not buying into the ideas and opinions of all the people who are not necessarily serving God, but I want what he wants. And so I spend time with him. And in David's day, it was literally the law. When Psalm 1 was written, that was what was available. We have access to the presence of God. And so it's spending time. I'm feasting on him. I want to know what he thinks about this. I want to know what his opinion is on this. I want his wisdom. I want his counsel. I want his knowledge. In my downtime, I'm sitting and I'm evaluating through his lens, through his filter. I want to live in the place where God is the source of how I choose my life is operating. And so from that place, I am promised that I will be blessed, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does shall prosper. Jeremiah 17:7-8 says, blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord, and whose hope is in the Lord. For he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spread out its roots by the river, and will not fear when heat comes, but its leaf will be green, will not be anxious in the year of drought, nor will cease from yielding fruit. What an incredible promise. This is like going to the greenhouse, finding the perfect tree. It's got all the potential in the world. Usually it's a stick. You know how we plant them. You don't plant a tree. You plant a stick with a few little branches on it, and you hang on to that card that they stick around it with a picture of this day, this one day will look like this, and I'm going to plant this, and it's going to be beautiful, and it's going to bear fruit. And this is what is meant to be your life. It's the thing where when you first come to Jesus and you encounter the possibility of hope and life and joy and freedom and forgiveness, you have all these possibilities. You're looking at that card and you're like, okay, how do I make sure this happens? What are the conditions that are necessary for this to happen? Well, it's this sort of stuff. It's what you stay away from and what you run towards. Blessed is the man who trusts in the Lord. Trust here means to be bold, to be confident, and to be sure of. So how's my tree going to grow well? Well, I am going to be bold. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be sure that God is who he says he is. I'm going to decide to hope in him. I'm going to decide to trust him. It goes on and it says, and whose hope is in the Lord. This word for hope is refuge, security, and assurance. So I am going to decide that if I'm going to live the life that is fruitful, that is what it could be on the picture, that I'm going to stay away from the counsel of the ungodly. I'm not going to stand in the path of sinners. I'm not going to sit in the seat of the scornful and relax back into that spot, but I am going to meditate on what God thinks, what he says, who he is. I'm going to trust in him. I'm going to hope in him. I'm going to find my refuge, security, assurance in God. And this is a progressive thing that we step into. This is a choice that we make. So this is the intention of God. This is the plan that we're supposed to be on. This is the place that we start with when we come into the family of God. When we come into salvation, we get that little card and we get that stick in a pot, and we're supposed to do something with it. It's just the beginning. It's the start of the process that we're on with God. Last week we talked about the craving of a generation, which is family. It's this place of belonging because none of us are intended to do life by ourselves. God's design is family. So there's biological family, and then there's your family of faith that we get called into. And the truth is, Jesus' love is wide open, available to all. His arms are wide open. We just say yes to him. We're not good enough. We're not clean enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not developed enough. We just come as we are, and his arms are wide open, and he is fully embracing. And in that moment, there's a wholeness in salvation where we experience freedom, life, forgiveness. What was dead comes alive. What was old becomes new again. God gives us this hope and this sense of a future. And we come into this place of family, and we find that you're a child of God, and you're a child of God, and you're a child of God, and we're all family. And then what we find out is that somehow this family seems dysfunctional. And dysfunctional is disappointing because God is perfect, and I thought this was going to be perfect and my life was going to be perfect, but now I'm in this group of people that supposedly know him and they're not perfect, and so obviously this isn't perfect. And what we have to understand is that God is not dysfunctional. But the church is sometimes, because we have people in it. And people are in process. And so what you bump into sometimes, if you have a less than perfect church experience, which is literally going to be everywhere while we're on this earth, you're finding people that are a little less gaudy and a little bit too people-y. And so God is perfect, people are dysfunctional, and when we're leaning a little bit towards the people side, the dysfunction shows up. And so what we have to understand is that this is a process that we're in, and this should not just be the norm. We should just not say that, okay, so church is full of broken people and is always going to be broken, and there's just broken and damage everywhere, and there's no hope. No, we have to understand that the potential that we start with in God is just meant to be maintained and developed over a lifetime, and it should get better and better and better. We have to understand that salvation itself, if that's like the tree, your walk with God is like the tree, there is nothing wrong with the tree itself. But the tree is designed to develop. The tree is designed to be taken care of. The tree is designed to have the right setting, the right surroundings, the right care, the right soil, the right sun, the right temperature, the right water, the right fertilizer. The tree is meant to be tended so that it can produce maximum fruit, right? So if we look at our lives this same way, we have to understand that when we come into the family, this idea of we all should be perfect, no, but we all should be being tended, cared for, developed. We should be having a growth process that comes with the journey of faith that we walk with one another. Ephesians 2:19 is the beginning of the journey, right? And it says, now therefore you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. New Living Translation says you are members of God's family. So you are no longer this distant person, this alone person, but you've been brought into the family of God. I look at this kind of like if we're talking about an orchard or a vineyard. This is when the orchard, the production is highest when there are healthy plants next to each other. When they come together and they're being cared for by the master gardener, but they're in good soil. They're being watered properly, and there's cross-pollination between the various trees so that they have maximum fruit. They have healthy, good fruit. This is a necessary thing in the natural. It's a necessary thing in the spiritual. So if we go on, Galatians 4:4-7, again, we talked about this last week, but when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who are under the law, that we might receive the adoption as sons. And because you are sons, God has sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying out, Abba, Father. Therefore, you are no longer a slave, but a son. And if a son, an heir of God through Christ. So we come to Christ where the beginning starts. We've got all the hope in the world. We're co-heirs with Christ. We're part of God's family. We're grafted into something new. And it is like this plant that has been taken, and it's meant to be taken to the right place to be cared for, to be nurtured. But we are the stewards of that. We are the ones who decide, like, to actually grow. We are the ones who decide that there's meant to be fruit out of our lives, that there's meant to be a product come out of our lives, that we're meant to be developed in him. We have this thing that has happened over church history where, increasingly, there was about 5 years ago, I think there was a lot of prophetic words about there was a season of exposure coming. And if you follow anything online, man, church has been messy globally. The exposure has happened, and is continuing to happen, where stuff that has been hidden, God has given a time for repentance. And if there wasn't public repentance, then God has exposed some things. And so it looks kind of creepy and kind of gross right now. And it's so tempting for people to say, like, I don't need the church. I don't need to be part of this. People are broken. People are damaged. People have issues. People are angry. People are bitter. People are whatever. And I think the wrong question to ask is are people around me what they should be? And the better question is to ask, am I being who I'm supposed to be? Am I producing the right kind of fruit? Is the right stuff coming out of my life? Am I honoring the Lord? Am I actually, if I'm a child of God, if this spirit of adoption has come and I'm an heir of God, I'm a child of God, is the right stuff coming out of my life? Do I look like him? And looking at have you ever purchased anything at a nursery? I have, where you've got the little tag, you're looking at the tree, but it's mostly a stick in a pot, and you get it home and you plant it, and it takes a couple years before you're like, this thing was mislabeled. It's actually not the tree that I thought it was. Something is wrong with this particular labeling. And sometimes we have to look at our own lives and go, am I actually what I say I am? Is the fruit of my life, is the product of my life matching up with the label that I'm choosing to wear? If I've got this tag on my life, am I actually living this? And it's such an interesting thing in a season like this to pause and just go, okay, God, what's my life looking like? I'm so tempted because of what's going on around me in church world to be critical, to evaluate, to be judgy, to wonder how this person could have done this and how that could have happened and where this person failed. And I have to pause and go, how's my life? How's my tree? What's the fruit that I'm producing? What's coming out of my life? So how do we do this? We have to understand that we are on a journey. When we start with Jesus, it's just the beginning of the journey. And number one, we have to embrace the process. There is a process that we have embarked upon. And it's a great process. It's a fantastic process, but it is a process. Anything that is designed to be processing, that stops processing, becomes toxic. So when we've embraced this process and we start into it, we realize that there's going to be change in our lives, there's movement in our lives. We actually experience more of God's goodness. When we came to Jesus, we had the completed work of the cross engage our lives. We call this, churchy words, justification. And so a simple way of remembering that is justification is just as if I'd never sinned. There is a fresh start, a clean beginning. It's a new thing that we step into. Justification. It means that Jesus paid the price for our sin. It means that we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, but Jesus paid the fullness of the price so that we could engage wholeness with him, so that we can be forgiven, so that we can come alive on the inside. This is the start of the journey with God, and it is its own thing. And so this is where we recognize that we're part of a family. We're forgiven, we're loved, there's new life, we have hope, we have joy, and there is an expectation of good. But if we stop at that and go, yeah, I'm a Christian, the end, and nothing changes, you're about the equivalent of, I have this thing where I love planting new trees, I love planting shrubs and things like that, but I am reticent to pay full price for anything, and so I love a good deal. So I kind of want to wait as long as I can while the sales progressively go throughout the season to buy the thing that I want to plant. And so I'll go and pick out the one, and I remember one year in particular, there was this cute little pine tree. It was just perfect. I kind of felt sad for it because it was like, oh, you were probably very happy where you were before they dug you up and brought you here to Walmart, and in Northern Grand Prairie, wherever it was. And I'm watching this tree, but to me, it felt like it was overpriced. So I kept going back every week, and I'm just waiting for the price to go down, and the tree's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. And then there was like this one hot weekend, and I don't know why I didn't go in that weekend, but we came in the following week, and this thing was like nearly dead. It had been sitting by itself so long that it was like brittle and cracky on the edges, and it wasn't even worth the price that they had wanted for it at that time. I couldn't bring it home. And what happens is when we have these seasons where it's like this plant was good at the beginning. It was hopeful at the beginning. I had hope for it from the beginning. But the longer it sat there by itself, without being tended, alone, the crispier it got, the yellower it got, the drier it got, to the point that it wasn't worth anything. It wasn't of any great value. When we see Jesus talk about abiding in the vine, you see about the twigs that get thrown away because they're not producing anything. And so for our own lives, we have to recognize that when we embrace the process, we're understanding that we say yes to Jesus, and this is our starting point. And it's not an end, any more than a wedding is an end. A wedding is a starting point, and then you have a marriage to develop. And so the wedding is this beginning of all things, where you have, you make your commitment to one another, there's love, there's valuing one another, there's exchanging of rings, there's the kiss, there's the pictures, there's the photographer, there's the license, and you have a wedding. And now 2 weeks into it, when that cup is still sitting by the dishwasher, waiting to go in, it's been sitting there for 3 days, you're about to find out you got a marriage. And that's something different entirely. I can stand there. We can go like, okay, we had a wedding. We had a wedding. We are married. And then you have those moments where it's just this repetitive thing. For instance, I have been informed that I did not know this by myself. I have been informed, and only actually recently Wayne actually spoke up about it. We've been married 33 years, so he's a patient man. But apparently I have a habit of leaving the last swallow of anything in my cup. I did not know I do that. And so finally, I've been informed that what happens is when you're loading the dishwasher, which I've been waiting for somebody to load, because not everybody sees it needs to be loaded. But apparently, certain people who load the dishwasher when it's their turn, because they recognize that it's their turn finally, then they let you know that you leave the last swallow of anything in the cup, which is then you go to load the dishwasher and your feet get soaked every single time. And I literally did not know that I do that. And so we found out that marriage over the years is where you learn from one another, where you pull out and you develop in the relationship with one another the things that need to be developed, things that you didn't know on your own. This is the process of marriage. It's the learning. How long can we sleep in this bed before we wash the sheets because it's not your turn or it's not my turn? It's wondering how much can we actually put, this is a 5-pound garbage bin. Let's see. And nobody's overtly going to say anything, but you might just give that thing a little shove down. Because it's probably your turn to take the garbage out. But honestly, you don't want to make the trip right now. So you just, there's stuff that you work out in marriage. Why do we think that when we come to Christ, that we have access to the whole thing and it's just going to land on us? And then we're disappointed with the people around us because you've been in Christ for a while and it didn't land on you. Well, because we're working it out. What we call this is something else. This is the process of sanctification. And this is where we spend the rest of our lives on this earth. We start with justification. What we're hoping for and waiting for is what we call glorification, which is when we're in heaven, either Jesus comes to get us or we die, but in that state, we are in our glorified state. We don't sin anymore. Everything's perfect. That's glorification. You don't have a hope of it on this life. So you started with justification. You got like your marriage certificate. You got your window, you got your moment into the presence of God, into access of the family, and now you start the process of sanctification. This is working it out. When Paul talks about working out your salvation with fear and trembling, it is learning. It is developing. I literally, if I was not living with this fantastic man on the front row, who's just awesome, just head and shoulders above every man in Israel. No, I would not know that I leave a swallow of whatever in my cup every single time. I did not know until somebody told me this. What are the things that need to be worked out in your life that come through the process of life and working it out with other believers? And the things that we see in one another and how we encourage one another, the stuff that God develops in us, it's the process of sanctification, and we need to not hate it. It's actually the hope that we have when everything else is going south over time, because that happens. The idea of getting older and older is that you actually have more time to experience more of the sanctification process and more of the goodness of God. Like when our fleshly bodies start to fail us, our spiritual body, our spirit man can be renewed day by day by day. And it's ever increasing. It should be this great joy that every day we have a day to increase in him, to grow in him, to be developed in him. We read it this way in 2 Corinthians 3:18. It says, "But we all with unveiled face, beholding as a mirror the glory of God, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord." And the Message Bible puts it this way. It says, "Nothing between us and God, our faces shining with the brightness of his face. And so we are transfigured, much like the Messiah, our lives gradually becoming brighter and more beautiful as God enters our lives and we become like him." Now, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I don't actually super well know every single person in this room, but I'm pretty confident in saying none of us have arrived there. I'm pretty sure none of us are like, I'm like God. You've seen me, you've seen him. It's all good. All this awesomeness, that is God. That is God. Now, we all got stuff. We all got things that are being constantly worked on. And what can happen is if we're looking at it from a physical, when we talk about earthly wisdom, if we look at this as like a therapy, you start therapy hoping that you'll get to the end of it. Whatever dysfunction has been rooted out and fixed, and so you get to the end and you feel a little bit more whole. If we look at salvation and the process of growth in God like that, then we feel irritated when we're at year 5, 10, 15, and there's still something the Holy Spirit's highlighting. And you're like, oh my goodness, are you serious? I must be like slow or something that I'm not picking this up. No, it's a journey of growth that we're supposed to be on. It should be increasingly as we go along, we're like, wow, God, show me something else. Show me something you want to develop in me. Let me be more like you. Let me experience you in this area of my life, in that area of my life. We want to choose the process. And so we embrace the process, number 2, and choose the conditions of it. And this sanctification process, just for your reference, the definition of sanctification is the act of setting someone or something apart and declaring it to be holy, God's special possession for special use. Isn't that beautiful? Sanctification is the act of setting someone or something apart and declaring it to be holy, God's special possession for special use. So some of us, we might be, in this point, we might say, if I have said yes to God, I thought I was set apart for him. But I have to decide that I am going to allow him into every part of my life. So my future, my present, my employment, my marriage, my parenting, my finances, my emotions, my attitude, my health, my wishes, my dreams, my extended family, how I deal with other people, how I care for the needs of my family. Every aspect of life, I'm increasingly setting it apart for him. There's something more that's his. There's something more that's his. It's one of those things that I think is fantastic about marriage. Have you ever noticed that people over time just begin to carry the same mannerisms? You can tell those two people are married and those two people are married and whatever because they're just obviously each other, and that is a gift. It's the thing where at the beginning, not everybody, but 99.9%, you come into marriage and you're like, wow, we were so in love and you were so perfect. And then you got that ring on your finger and you turned it to somebody else. And now we got to figure out who we are. And we're two different people living in this tiny apartment because that's all we can afford right now. And you are in my bathroom. And you find out that like not everybody rinses the sink the same after they brush their teeth. And some people smile at the teeth and they're brushing their teeth. And then it's like, here, and it shouldn't be there, and like there's these moments, and over time you just learn to stop pushing the buttons. You start learning to adapt. You start learning that irritates you, so I'm not going to do it. You start learning like, if I need this, I'm going to ask you for it instead of waiting for you to take a hint. Like there's these things that begin to happen over time. It's the beauty of extended length of time in marriage is you come to that place of ease with one another where it's just simple and it's beautiful and you want to honor each other. You start that way too, but the flesh rises up pretty high at the top. And as you get going on in life, you more realize it's just beautiful to be pouring into one another, to be serving one another. So this is what we're talking about when I say choose your conditions, which is number 2. Choose your conditions. Decide the conditions you want to be in. You maybe can't decide the circumstances of your life, but you can decide the conditions that you want to live in. So in other words, we would say in marriage counseling, you can be right or you can be happy. What does that mean? You can be right all day and you can be right yourself right into an empty house. That's how that works. I'm right. Well, you adapt, you grow. So you choose your conditions, you choose to adapt. We can choose how to walk with God. And as we're choosing the things of God, we have to understand that the process is normal, that changing from glory to glory is normal. So I can choose to embrace it, and I can choose to allow God to show me things to adapt, things that need to be molded, things that need to be crafted, or I can ignore the process and I can be a bitter person who never grows in God. This is the reason. While you'll meet some people who have known Jesus and walked with him for 3 years and met people who have known Jesus and walked with him for 30 years and the 3-year-old is further along. It is exactly this. There are times and seasons where we get to choose. I'm going to allow God to change me. I'm going to allow him to mold me. I'm going to allow him to bring out what needs to be brought out. I'm going to dig into his word. I'm going to spend time in his presence. I'm going to choose to walk not in the counsel of the wicked. I'm going to choose to not sit in the seat of the scornful. I'm going to choose to meditate on his law day and night. I'm going to choose to trust in the Lord. I'm going to choose to honor the Lord. And in those seasons, I will grow. The conditions around my life will be such that I can produce good fruit, that something good comes out of my life. Or I can sit and evaluate everybody else and wonder why they're not helping me, why they're not doing better, why their fruit isn't as good as I thought it should be by now. I can evaluate everybody else, or I can evaluate myself and allow God to evaluate me. John 15, Jesus talks about abiding in the vine, and it's a really spectacular passage where he's inviting us into this place of fruitfulness and maximum life coming out of us. But in John 15:5, he quite simply says this. He says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who abides in me and I in him bears much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. That's the straight up thing. So what's the invitation? I am the vine, you are the branches, he who abides in me. This word abide means to be entwined together with. So am I allowing him to be entwined together with me in my thought processes? Am I allowing him to be entwined together with me? Am I pursuing him in how I'm thinking, in how I'm spending, in how I'm spending my time, in how I'm spending my life, in how I'm caring for my spouse, in how I'm caring for my children? Am I abiding in him in these areas? Because if I do, good fruit will come out of my life. It will be great fruit, and it will be fruit that remains, much fruit. For without me, you can do nothing. This revelation, this tells us that I can start with Jesus. I can be justified, but I need the process of sanctification where I'm entwining my life with him and walking it out. Francis Chan says, there are periods we forget that in the pursuit of fruit, that if we just abide in him, then fruitfulness is a guarantee. What does this mean? Let's go back just for a second to the picture of this tree that you buy at the greenhouse, and you wonder, can it do what it looks like on the little card that's attached to the stalk of it? Can it produce like this? Well, yes, it can. If it's in the right place, in the right circumstances, the right environment, it's getting the right food and the right water, it's being tended. That tree is not trying to produce fruit, it just will produce fruit. What's the condition of your life? What's the condition of my life? Am I drawing from the right source? Feeding from the right place, being nourished in the right way? Am I living in the light? Am I pursuing God? Am I choosing to trust him and hope in him? Am I choosing to be wrapped around him? Is he an integral part of my life? Am I allowing him to adjust me? And am I allowing the place where he put me, the family of God, to help shape me, to help nurture me, to help develop me? Am I so busy looking at other people's fruit or non-fruit that I'm forgetting to look at my own? So the final thing as we finish this today is that we're just called to live by the Spirit. See, fruitfulness is not the same thing as busyness. It's not. Fruitfulness is not the same thing as doing stuff. Fruitfulness means that the product of my life looks like him. Remember where it says there, that we are transformed into the same image from glory to glory. We are transformed much like the Messiah, our lives gradually becoming brighter and more beautiful as God enters our lives and we become like him. So this process, it's this thing that we get invited into where fruit comes out in every area of our lives. When we get cut off in traffic, when we get, that moment of utter frustration standing in a lineup somewhere, when you get that phone call that you didn't expect, but it just sets you off, when your kids are wigging out for the 77th time today, and you have no idea what's going on, when you're having to deal with a work circumstance that is, you're like tempted to be like, I don't get paid enough to deal with this. That's where the fruit shows up. What we want to look at is, well, I serve here, and I do that, and I lead this ministry, and I do that, and That's not what we're talking about. The fruit is what is coming out of my life. Do I look like Jesus? So we're called to live by the Spirit. How we describe fruit is the product, or what comes out, what is produced. Literally, what comes out of my life. And if we look at that, if we look at and consider, you go to the nursery, you're looking, you're evaluating, do I want what it is I'm about to purchase and plant based on what it will produce? Whether it's the leaves, the height, the color, flowers, fruit, you are purchasing based on what will be produced. If people sample your life, my life, will they want to buy the tree? Is it producing? Is what comes out of it worth having? Is what comes out of it worth pursuing? And so there's a simple test that we can do. Jesus talks about Matthew 7:20. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them. He's like the state of what the tree is actually about, what it's actually meant to be, and what's the substance of it is evaluated by the fruit. And the fruit that we have is generated because we are children of God. The Spirit of God comes in us, dwells in us. We have the spirit of adoption. We become part of a new family. And now the fruit of the Spirit, or the outcome, the product of the Spirit of God in our lives, has certain attributes that should be present. Galatians 5, all of our little kids know this. We've all done the little, if you did Sunday school, you cut out the little banana and you cut out the little orange and all this stuff. You've measured out the different fruit, and you know that they're all attached to a name so that we can remember it. But there are 9 basic ones that we can evaluate the health of the tree based on, is this fruit present in my life? And so some of us, we can come into church and we can just be like, I'm not sure I don't know if church is worth it for me. I don't know if I'm getting anything out of it. I don't know if people like me. That person kind of smiled at me weird. I think they're thinking things about me that maybe they know stuff that they shouldn't know because maybe somebody gossiped about me, and maybe that person just feels like I'm dressed weird. And we have like all these things that we think. My challenge is, what if we actually just like go, okay, God, you put me in this house to bear maximum fruit. And there's going to be people around me, and they're going through the same process, and they're learning to bear maximum fruit. So instead of picking out everybody else's issues and everybody else's stuff and assess what I think that they're thinking, I'm going to think, what are you thinking about me? And I'm going to ask you to search me, oh God, and know me. And I'm going to see if the fruit of the Spirit is evident in my life. And it's this basic stuff. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such there is no law. These 9 things, if we look at long-suffering, the other word for it is patience, or that place of being able to endure. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. When we look at this, we can be like, I'm not sure that I'm experiencing that from all the people around me. The question is, in a season like this where God invites us to evaluate the tree, are people experiencing that from me? Are they experiencing it from you? Am I walking in love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control? Is that evident? What we have in this, the wisdom of this age, will say things like, so-and-so made me so angry. Outward looking, right? So-and-so made me so angry. Then I get to exercise the fruit of self-control. I'm so stressed out. Everything around me is just in turmoil. I don't know if I've got a job next week. I get to exercise the fruit of peace. I get to put a draw on that. Somebody does something cruel and unthinking. I can't believe they said that to me. That's so hurtful. I'm never going back to that church again. Or I can choose forgiveness. Maybe somebody does something and it seems like out of character. It just came out of nowhere. Well, maybe I can decide to exchange kindness or gentleness in return. Maybe I can put a draw in the group setting. Maybe this is a good place to practice. What is the fruit of my life supposed to be? I will guarantee you, if you're newer to your walk with God, you're never going to ace any of these. There will be an opportunity along the way to re-pull all of the fruits. There's going to be a time when you feel like I got joy licked. Man, joy is easy for me. Joy is, I just like love God. The joy of the Lord is my strength. And then you go through such a time that you're like, I don't think I got any joy. You exercise it again. There's going to be times when you feel like, man, I'm so peaceful. I'm not stressed out about anything. And then you get a letter in the mail, or you get a notice about something that you can't control, and you get to exercise peace again. These basic things, this fruit of long-suffering, of goodness, of faithfulness, of gentleness, these things are available to us, and it's part of the process of sanctification. This is what a good church looks like. This is what a good family looks like. This is what a good orchard in God's kingdom looks like. Are people who are in such a place where we are choosing the conditions of our life. We're choosing what we're feeding on. We're choosing what we're taking in. We're choosing what we're allowing. And we're choosing to be in the place for maximum fruitfulness. And this sort of stuff comes out. It's a place where we love one another well enough to call each other on stuff. Where we have the proverbial, like, you got a swallow of coffee still in your cup, and I'm letting you know because maybe you don't know that. You can't see everything, but when we come into the family, that's what it's for. So we can see, we can help, we can encourage one another, we can build one another up, we can strengthen one another. I can use my fruits to help you in an area where you're lacking right now, and you can use your fruits to help me in an area where I'm lacking right now. And there's this beautiful thing that God calls us to. It tells us a little further on in this particular verse to just do this very particularly and very specifically. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. Recognize that your flesh is trying to destroy the fruit, but the Spirit of God will produce it in you. So decide the conditions that you're going to put this tree of life in. Decide the conditions that you're going to meditate on. Decide what you're going to feed on. Decide what's going to come out of you. Decide to embrace the journey. Decide to recognize that the process has value, and choose to live by the Spirit. I'm going to have the worship team come. There's a quote by Heidi Baker. She says, all fruitfulness flows from intimacy. And I love that basic idea. All fruitfulness flows from intimacy. The tree itself, there's nothing wrong with the tree. When you came to Jesus and you gave your life to him and you're like, I have all the hope in the world that everything's going to be different. And maybe you got a week or two or a couple years or a couple decades down your road and you're like, this is not what I thought. There is nothing wrong with the tree, but evaluate the conditions that it's in. Evaluate what you're taking in. Evaluate what you're feeding on. Evaluate what your mind is resting upon. Evaluate where your hope is, where your trust is. Evaluate whether you're leaning on the power of the Holy Spirit, whether you're allowing him to produce in you. Let's stand together, and I just want to pray over us today. And I want to encourage you as you go from here and you're seeing the green leaves, pre-bugs. They're so fresh and so new. You see the flowers. You see the beautiful new things of a new season. I want you to pause. Look at your own life and say, God, I want the hope of this season in my own life. I want the hope of this season in my own life. Whether I'm an older tree and I need pruning, I need things that are dead, cut off. I need things that are drawing from wrong sources to be cleaned up. God, I ask you to do that. If I'm a new tree and I'm not fully established yet, God, I'm asking you for your wisdom. I'm praying that you would teach me by your word. I'm praying that you would draw me in by your Spirit as I spend time with you, that you would help me to choose well. I thank you, Lord, that whatever state I am in, you have called me to be a tree of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that I would bear good fruit that reflects you well. God, today I pray over your people. I thank you, Lord, for this season that we have engaged, that we've embarked upon in the natural, but also in the spiritual. God, a season of great fruitfulness. May our roots grow deep. Lord, may we feed and feast on your faithfulness and on your goodness. Lord, help us to decide what it is that we are drawing in, that we are learning from, that we are partaking of. God, help us to choose to produce the right fruit in the right season. God, to put a draw on your Spirit. I thank you that it's not willpower, but it's by your Spirit, God. Not by might, not by power, but by your Spirit. So God, help us to choose well, to produce the fruits of the Spirit, God, that as we partake wisely, as we lean into you, as we fall into deeper levels of love with you, God, that your fruit would be produced in us. May we reflect you well, and may we be a people of great fruitfulness in this season. We thank you for it, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.